It's human nature to look to the future and ponder what awaits us in the unknown ether of time. And that's just what a bunch of video game experts did way back in 2009. Some managed to paint a pretty accurate picture of what the future would look like. Others, like me predicting I'd have a hard light hologram of Elliot from Stardew Valley by 2020, were wildly off the mark. Here are 3 totally wrong predictions, 3 relatively accurate predictions, and 3 things nobody saw coming. All of these predictions came from video game journalists and people within the industry, so I can assure you that they are in earnest, but I haven't included citations for any of them because it doesn't really seem fair to dunk on people for not being able to guess the future, except for Cassandra of Troy, but her predictions are like so off base. What an idiot. By now, graphics were supposed to be so accurate, they would be hard to discern from reality. When you consider the leap in graphics between 2000 and 2009, it's easy to appreciate just why you'd think total realism was inevitable. Graphics are definitely more real-ish than they were 10 years ago, and real-time ray tracing is going to make water and mirrors look way better in the next decade. But at a certain point, you have to hone incredibly minute details to be able to ramp over the uncanny valley. And it's mostly like weird stuff, like teeth shininess and eye whiteness and making like regular human expressions. Those who believed in this verisimilitude wondered what emotional damage you'd experience seeing something that looks exactly like you die. And I can tell you, having allowed a partner to recreate my face in Dark Souls 3 and then having to deal with seeing myself hollowed, it was fine. It's not a big deal. I'm me. I'm not that character. It's fine.
Science fiction writers, filmmakers, they haven't imagined what we're able to do today.
These predictions were made after E3 2009, where Peter Molyneux gave birth to Project Milo, a super advanced interactive AI experience. So lots of people anticipated that AI voices, animations, and conversation skills would be so natural, there'd be no need for voice actors or scripts. Finally, art made without the burden of human talent. Milo was supposed to inaugurate the era of motion interactive games and facial recognition, but instead he just sorta disappeared. The full-body motion controller that would become the Kinect had its moment, but decidedly did not revolutionize gaming. There's some doubt about whether Milo was ever really a game or just a tech demo, and if it became part of Fable 2 or whatever. But he certainly didn't eliminate the need for good old-fashioned game making. The past decade has seen bigger scripts, more voice acting, and better facial motion capture than ever before. Good news for those of us who never want to stop listening to Melma Hoot's voice.
You look cute right now.
The Great Recession of the 2000s cast a pretty dark cloud over a lot of these predictions. There is a general feeling that video games had peaked, the market was saturated, growth would flatline, and major studios would shutter. And I probably don't have to tell you that's not really what happened. In 2008, games pulled in $12 billion, which is not shabby. In 2018, that was up to $43.4 billion, which is even less shabby. Considering the 300 hours I've put into a little game called Stardew Valley, it's been a great investment of money, if not in time. In terms of relatively accurate predictions, a surprising number of developers correctly forecasted the presence of cloud-based streaming platforms. This was ahead of the launch of early streaming services like OnLive Game Service in 2010 and Gaikai in 2011, so that's actually a pretty impressive guess. These services let you play games remotely, circumventing the need for an expensive gaming PC. All you need is an expensive internet connection. Both OnLive and Gaikai were bought by Sony ahead of the launch of PlayStation Now, but they demonstrated to the industry that this idea had legs. Cloud streaming hasn't, and likely won't, usurp full downloads, and there's no single service that has dominated the market enough to become essential. But between GeForce Now, Steam Link, xCloud, and Google Stadia, there's no denying it does have a place in the industry. Physical media is dead, long live the download! Admittedly, the predictions here were a lot more dire than the reality. Forbes forecasted that all retail game stores and boxed games would go the way of the blockbuster. Physical sales of games accounted for 80% of the market in 2009. By 2018, it was down to 17%. GameStop is still operating, but announced early in 2019 that it would be shuttering up to 200 stores, which is not a great sign. As digital storefronts diversify and subscription services become more popular, there will be even less of a call to buy physical games. I mean, at least until games are hit by their own Han shot first scandal to remind people the upside of static media.
McClunky.
The hazy concept and poorly Latinized word gamification first appeared in 2008, and people, especially people in the industry who were looking for the next big thing, latched onto it immediately. As such, there were lots of predictions about how the future would be cluttered with metagames and badges and leveling and quantifiable scoring system and built-in competition and all sorts of bullshit. Overt gamification elements are less omnipresent now than they were in the mid-2010s, but they're still out there. If you're on that Duolingo grind, you know exactly what I'm talking about. LinkedIn is just gamified networking, Fitbit and the quest for 10,000 steps is gamified exercising, social media provides you with hard data about your popularity, and you can even cheat at it. It's not that gamification is everywhere, just that certain elements of gamification have become so common, we don't perceive them as gamification anymore, for better or for worse. Anyway, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. The wild thing about linear time is that it makes it impossible to see the future, so inevitably there will be some things that nobody saw coming, like virtual reality. It was a little more than a dream from the 90s, but then Palmer Luckey designed the prototype for the Oculus Rift in 2010. Since then, it's been a bit of a virtual roller coaster. Luckey kickstarted the project in 2012 for $2 million, and everyone thought VR would be the next big thing. Then he flipped it to Facebook for $2 billion in 2014, much to the consternation of people who forgot how capitalism works. For the mid-teens of the decade, it languished with lots of potential but no real follow-through, just like me in my mid-teens. With equipment prices dropping and a game library with Super Hot and Beat Saber, VR has justified its place in games, if not in my tiny New York apartment. Then there's esports. There was some rumination about competitive gaming and game shows being a part of the future, but nobody had any predictions about esports. It wasn't that they didn't exist. Esports were already huge in South Korea, and EVO dates back to 1996 when it was called Battle by the Bay. But it wasn't something the industry itself necessarily held in high esteem. It wasn't until the early 2010s that the esports e-ball started rolling, when a ton of popular modern esports games were released.
It's about time.
Although one or two experts suggested that there was room for experimental games in the following decade, nobody foresaw what a huge part of the industry indie games would become. The first rumblings came with Braid and Castle Crashers in 2008, and then the scene exploded with the successes of Super Meat Boy and Limbo in 2010. Crowdfunding meant individuals or small studios could get funding for smaller projects, and digital distribution meant you didn't have to hand-press discs in your basement to get your game out into the world. Not to mention new tools and platforms made it simpler for independent creators to make and sell games. It's easier than ever to make a game and harder than ever to get noticed. Those are the most notable predictions from the last decade of gaming, and I'd say my main takeaway is that you should never think about or plan for the future, because all is unknowable. But here are my predictions for Stardew Valley in the next decade. First of all, Stardew Valley finally reflects my personal preferences when it comes to romance by letting me marry multiple people, Elliot and Maru. Get in my house. Stardew Valley hot coffee mod. I think is really gonna upset a lot of people. Not me. Stardew Valley 2, Mountain Valley. That's nothing.